All right, so the second in the video to homelab init. Welcome. This is still very messy. My room is messy. And you probably notice there's some differences here. Let me go ahead and zoom in. So I have, God, it's such a mess. I have, it's actually waiting on my last reboot there. I need to go do that. In fact, let me go do that right now. All right. Okay, so a few things that I want to cover today since the last time we talked. There's been a lot changed. Okay, so the first thing that changed, I'm just going to summarize really quickly. So hi YouTube, if you're on Twitch, this is the part for YouTube. I am going to cover this during Q&A as well. So if you have questions, you want to come into Twitch and ask them live. We'll be covering that later on. Particularly the changes. I already talked about the changes from dropping Proxmox and why, but I'm going to try in about 5 to 10 minutes to summarize all of the architectural changes that have come since that time. Hey, how's it going, Raymond? So just remember, everybody who's on Twitch right now, welcome. And we're in the middle of recording a YouTube video called homelab init. It's a series about me building my home lab the way I want to. And I'm going to talk about that right now. So first thing I want to talk about is the changes that I made to the architecture and the feelings and the philosophy that I went through during the process of coming to that conclusion, and then ultimately the plan going forward and what we're going to end up doing. All right, so let me just set a timer so I can see what time it is, because I don't want to go too long. Okay, so the first thing is this. Okay, so why Mac Minis, right? So I picked Mac Minis because I had 19 of them left over from when I was at SkillStack. I've talked about that before. Mac Minis are actually fantastic, particularly the old ones. They're really fantastic. They're a few steps up from a Raspberry Pi, so they're really powerful. They're Intel chips, so you can do any kind of mainstream Kubernetes or whatever you want to do on them. And so that's why I have Mac Minis. I have a lot of them. You only see I think 10 or 11 up front there, and then in the back we've got some other ones. These other computers up in the front here, these are my old MSI Tridents. These are called the Console Killer. They're all gaming systems back when we used to do gaming. You can go back and look at my Instagram on SkillStack if you want to. You can see people doing game camps and stuff. And so these are left over. A lot of the other ones I donated to people or I gave to family members, stuff like that. So these are my 6 that I have left. And so they are there. Every single system that you're looking at right now is running Ubuntu server, and I'll come back to that. Just give me a sec. So over here on the far side, right here, that is the HP Z640 that has 2 times 14 cores, otherwise 28 cores times 2, which makes 58 CPUs. That also has 128 gigabytes of ECC RAM, expandable up to 56 if I wanted to, and a half a terabyte of STD, NVMe. I think it's NVMe disk. So that is also there, right? And that's plugged in. That's the main server that I run into. I gave it the name Anton because I'm kind of using that instead of my local VM inside of my streaming system. And so that gives that's the entirety of the compute resources, except for, and they haven't come here, I just got the hats for them right here. That's going to be 16, minimally 16 Raspberry Pis, and with the PoE hats, and I've got the little PoV switch, which is really lame because there's like 16 hot swappable positions, and there's exactly 16 ports. So, and you need 17 ports in order to connect it to an uplink, which is super annoying because it's like that, we're just off by one. But so that's going to be there. I do have another 15 or 16 Raspberry Pis. I don't know if I'm going to buy the rack. It was like $250. I may just stack them up along with these. So I have 3 Jetson Nanos that are famous for doing machine learning, and these all have 128 core NVIDIA. I bought these for IRL streaming, but I'm actually going to use them when I'm not IRL streaming them to do machine learning and do machine learning jobs in Kubernetes, which is what I support. Okay, so that is a whirlwind tour of all the hardware. I have an NVIDIA, I have a 100 gigabyte connection, 100 or 200 gigabyte connection to the internet. It's hardwired wire, it's not fiber. I also have an old trash can, a Mac Power Mac, well, not Power Mac, a Power MacBook Pro, a Mac Pro at the top, one of the old school ones, which I have not tried to get to work yet. But I probably will get that to work too. It's got quite a bit of power in it. It cost me $3,000 when I bought it originally. So why all this hardware and what am I doing? So I had all the hardware lifted from SkillStack. I don't recommend that people go out and buy a ton of hardware. I don't think that's a good idea. To get these Mac Minis, you'd be paying like through the nose for that, and it probably wouldn't even work. And you might want to get I would rather. I mean, all the money even today at eBay, I can get about 100 for each, so I can get about 1,900. So or 5, 6, 700 short. To about 1,000 short actually from buying a full-blown server that I could just chop up into different virtual machines or whatever. And if I had to do over again, with buying fresh stuff, I would probably buy servers. But there is an advantage to having a separate computer that's hardware, because you can do things that you can't do with a virtual machine. And so I'm kind of happy to have that. That's one of the reasons Raspberry Pi is so popular. But the problem with Raspberry Pis is that they're all ARM. So many of the things that you could do with them, you can't do because it's ARM, and ARM doesn't have full support yet. And so the Mac Minis actually turn out to be really good. So I don't know, man. If you can get yourself, if you're interested in getting yourself a few Mac Minis, it might be worth it. They're only $100, and they're around because nobody wants them. They're totally underpowered. Everybody thinks they're crap. So you might be able to get that. If you can't get yourself a Raspberry Pi 4, get yourself a Mac Mini and put, a bunch of server on there, and you're like, way better than a Raspberry Pi. What about the Luke Smith thing? I know who Luke Smith is, and I think he's not somebody but I don't want to talk about it because we're recording for a different purpose. So why don't you put that in the Q&A section? Can you put that do you want to put that in the Q&A? So anybody who has questions, I welcome your questions, but during these other sessions, I'm going to go ahead and put it off. I'm actually posting your question into the questions, conversations, and advice section of the Discord, and that's where we're going to go through questions and stuff, okay? So yeah, you just go to the Discord and find the telephone. You can put it in there. Yeah, but you can just ask here too, and I'll just copy it over for you. But that's going to be coming up so every day. Let me just make a plug. Every day from every Monday through Thursday, I should say, from 6:30 to 7:30, we have live questions and answers and advice, question conversations and advice sessions. So you can come on in and participate and be in our studio audience, ask your questions, stuff like that. So I've been kind of putting all the questions into that time. I will also talk about something else I'm going to talk about here with the thing. But for the next hour during this video right here that I'm making, I'm dedicating this live session that we have to homelab init, which is talking about homelab stuff. Okay. So having explained all the hardware and the switches, I just got another switch. So I've got 3 switches. I got 2 24 port switches, a Netgear and some other off-brand that doesn't have the PoE. The Netgear one has 12 PoE ports, which give power to things like Raspberry Pis through the Ethernet. And then I have, of course, the dedicated 16 PoE for the Raspberry Pi. So that's, that covers my network needs in terms of routing and stuff. And that's about it. I do have a UPS, universal power supply, that's really dated from APC that I bought new batteries for some time ago. I have to find it. It's in my boxes somewhere. And I'm going to find that. And that I will probably put just the main server and the router on it, because I don't have enough UPS stuff. I need to put my entire streaming rig and everything on there. Eventually, when I get the money, I want to soak the money into like a really, really good. They're like $5,000 to get a good UPS from APC or something to take care of my whole home lab needs, everything. Particularly if you're like, I got the first one when I was living in Tucson. We were getting brownouts all the time from lightning storms from the monsoons and stuff. So the UPS is the thing that you would get. All right, so that covers the hardware. The next thing I want to cover is some of the changes that I made from the last time that I talked about this. And I'm not going to change the screen. I'll just talk to the camera for a little bit more on this. So the first thing is, and I know the way I wrote about it, I might have come off offensive to some people because I was pretty frustrated because I wasted a lot of time with Proxmox. Wasted meaning that I ended up throwing it out. I learned a lot of things about Proxmox. And so I guess that's not wasted time. That's time that I can now use. I can legitimately and objectively talk about the problems with Proxmox and why Proxmox is not the solution for me and for most other people who want to do a home lab. In fact, the only people that probably want to use Proxmox are people who have 1 or 2 servers, 5 servers tops, that they are chopping up into multiple virtual machines, and they are okay with GPLv3 Affero licensing, and the web interface and everything that comes with it, and they just want it for that. And if you want it for that, fine, okay. But I don't. So the long story short, I sat up all night, because it takes these. There are ways to do automated installs with Ubuntu and with Rocky Linux, and I do want to talk to you about why I switched from Red Hat to Ubuntu. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But I did. I went ahead and just tried Proxmox, and I was putting all this stuff on there, and I was booting them all up and everything. And then I got to 14, and the whole Proxmox system started falling on its face. It was unable to sync properly. Things would go from red to green. Sometimes it was because the browser was caching incorrectly. Other times it was because it was just dropping connections. And no matter how much I did to go change all the connections out, all the forum posts I read for help, it just kept screwing up. And finally, it just gave up. I couldn't even access the primary thing through the web interface, and I had no access to anything. And all the systems were still up. I could still SSH into them all. It was just the Proxmox virtual bridge and everything that was really screwed up. And then I started reading about it, and I read that the limitation of Proxmox is 32 maximum nodes per cluster. And I already have that right here. I don't even know if Proxmox is old. I don't know. So, I mean, everybody was raving about it, right? And how awesome it was. And it was better than XCG, NG, or whatever, because that's Zen and not KVM, and it requires Windows, and blah, 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 blah. And then, a few people like Mossy and everybody were like, you don't need any of that. You can just use KVM and libvirt and Virt Manager, and you'll be fine. And I was like, everybody says Proxmox is awesome, so I should at least try it. So I did, and then determined that it's not awesome. It's the opposite of awesome. I cannot overly stress enough how bad Proxmox is for most home labs and for other stuff. I can't believe people use that in production at all. It's just not stable. It cannot synchronize things fast enough. It has zero latency tolerance at all to have all of that stuff on your home network. If somebody misses a beat, then the whole thing goes. I was sitting here watching. When I had 12 nodes on it, I started to see like nodes randomly going red and then turning green and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And I checked the server out, and I was like, is the server fine? Yes, the server's just fine. It was just because of all the CoroSync stuff. It was just failing because the architecture is actually horrible. I mean, the architecture for Proxmox is abysmally bad. I mean, it's so bad. It makes assumptions about network latency and synchronization and what a cluster actually is, that I just can't stress enough how much I disagree with it. So, if you want to use it, that's fine, but I'm not. I threw it out like completely and immediately. And I was like, and then I got rethinking, well, what am I doing here? And then so I tried to install Red Hat. I installed Red Hat, Rocky Linux, on about 3 machines. And then I started having problems because some of the Mac stuff was not compatible, and I had to go through all of these extra steps to get Red Hat to even install on a Mac Mini. And then I found a forum post that I talked about yesterday where they said, oh, we don't support Mac hardware and we never will. And I'm like, well, that's not what you said in 2003 when you made Fedora and said you were going to do enterprise stuff but supporting the Linux community, which turned out to be a big lie. And I won't do anything with Red Hat anymore. And I talked a lot about that during Q&A last night. I'm actually really spun up lately about how bad Red Hat is, mostly because they're the Apple of Linux. Red Hat is the Apple of Linux. They don't care about the Linux open source community. They do a lot of lip service, but when it comes to actually supporting users who are asking for things like, oh, hey, I've got an Intel chip Mac and I want to run Red Hat on it, they're like, well, we don't care about you. They don't. They say, well, you can do these other steps over here, but we're never going to support that. And that's their attitude. It's this cavalier attitude like, oh, it sucks to be you. We cater to the enterprise, and Mac Minis will never be an enterprise, so you don't matter. And that really, really pisses me off because that is not who I am. I have always been a free and open source Linux person who has had to do these other things in order to get a job, blah, blah, blah. And in production, you see VMware ESXi. There have been a number of people who've said they put Proxmox into production. I don't even know what that means here, and that they've never had a problem. Probably because it's got 1 or 2 servers in it. In fact, I would challenge you, if you found somebody who likes Proxmox and is using it successfully, ask them how many servers they have, how many nodes are in their cluster. I bet you they'll have under 5 every time. But I wasn't, and I had a bunch of old hardware that I was putting in nodes, and I was, burning it all up and everything. A lot of it just on the Proxmox stuff. So that's where I'm at, and that has explained my position where I'm at. I threw out Red Hat and Rocky, and I know Hayden, for example, who's on the Rocky team, is an amazing person, and we have a lot of, Tanis is a huge Rocky fan. These are people that I deeply respect, and I know that Red Hat is out there for everything else. And Red Hat certifications are the only thing that Red Hat cares about is enterprise money. They don't. So look, we just accept what Red Hat is for what it is. And that means if you want to work for more companies, you need to learn Red Hat. But that brought me to another really big conclusion last night, which was I don't need to do what anybody tells me to do. In my own home lab, I got this script going in my head that says, oh, well, you can't use that because that will not make you relevant for enterprise. Because that's such a big part of who I am. I'm always trying to prepare people for jobs in the enterprise and to do things that'll get them hired, like Go programming versus Rust, for example, and things like that. And so I have this script in my head that's overly zealously telling me, oh, you can't do anything at all that's not going to prepare you and others for enterprise. And the truth is, I don't have to. I can do whatever I want. So it's my own home lab. What the hell? It's the reason I have a home lab. So, not to mention the fact that Canonical and Ubuntu Server are way bigger when it comes to containers and DevOps and all that stuff. You'll never see somebody putting Red Hat on a container. Almost never. Pushing on Pullman instead of Docker. And, it's my own home lab. So, this is a really crazy thing about me and home lab and it. So here's the TLDR of this whole segment. Give yourself permission to do what you want on your own home lab. If you want to experiment with Proxmox, fine. If you want to put, Windows Server on there, if you want whatever you want to do, just do it. That's the whole point. The whole point of a home lab is to keep it fun so that you'll want to play with it instead of play Dota for 6 hours. It's to keep it fun and experimental and do different things. And what else do I love to do? And so this brings me back to this final point about where I'm going philosophically with my home lab development. So you can decide if you want to follow along. And I wrote a big thing about this. And I wrote a big Zed about this. And I call it the hacker's approach to IT architecture in your home lab. The reason that I have been driven to make my home lab since the dawn of time, since I was 12, has been hacking the whole entire time. When I was 12, I was hacking Bruce Lee, 5.25-inch floppy disks by randomly removing sectors until I could get by the security. And I played it was all, pixelated and broken and stuff, but it worked. It was always more fun to do the hacking, to play Zork on the command line. And I'm dating myself here, but and randomly delete sectors on, protected games and stuff to get into there and play whatever I wanted to. And that was when War Games came out with Matthew Broderick and everything. So I've always been motivated by getting around things or figuring out how they work, not necessarily nefariously to be mean or evil, but just because that's what makes it fun. So if it's not fun, you're not going to do it. So I am a hacker at heart, always have been, and I realized today and yesterday that this is really tainting my ability to watch other streamers and videos. So I was watching Alt F4 as among other fantastic streamers, by the way. Black Glasses and the people over there, they're fantastic. They're doing great things. They're really helping people. And I learned so much about Azure, cloud deployment today just by watching for 10 or 15 minutes. These are fantastic streamers that I totally support, and I think everybody should watch them. But when I'm also watching them, I'm thinking about all this infrastructure as code stuff and Terraform and Ansible and Pulumi and all this thing. And yesterday I was like, how am I going to install these different packages on these endpoints that I have over here? Should I do? I wasted an entire hour trying to figure out what the best way to manage my own home lab is when I could have finished the entire thing in the same hour if I had just done SSH and bash scripts. but I didn't give myself permission to do it the fastest way, because the fastest way is hacky. Well, guess what? I'm a fucking hacker. Sorry, you're one F word for this video. I'm a fucking hacker, 2 F words. And, you know, that's the way to get it done. And there's a huge sword player here. Yeah, so you know, I'm like going through the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, why is the hacky way bad? The hacky way is bad because the enterprise has told us it's bad. If you're not using Ansible and installing Python and then installing Terraform and then having a fight about whether Polymia is better because it uses Python and then picking that and then doing, you know, you want to just pull the rest of your hair out. I'm like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm a hacker. What do? I do what is the most efficient at the time with the technology I have. That is hacker mentality. It's not, I'm going to use this thing because this is the best thing in the enterprise and this is the thing you should use. Use the thing that's going to make you the most efficient at what you want to do. And usually that's hacking or learning stuff. And guess what the best possible technology for that to do in my home lab is? Bash plus SSH. Boom. With Ubuntu server running on hardware. Which is actually Debian, which is, you know, the hacker's best friend. And people would say Arch is the hacker's best friend. I disagree. I think it's Debian. It's more stable. A bunch of other things. Anyway, so, I mean, I could use Arch, but the whole package management stuff. Cloud Init is the main reason that I would use this over. Cloud Init over Arch is the main reason I will use Ubuntu. Because why? Because I can write tools like Fluff that actually do my own configuration management and bring up my own VMs on KVM remotely or that kind of thing. And that's stuff I actually want to learn. But why do I want to learn it? I want to learn it because the hacker in me wants to learn it. And it may or may not be effective for my job, but that's the person who wants to learn it. So mostly I realize that being a hacker means that if something is just irrelevant architecture for what I'm doing, trying to accomplish and hack, then I can do it without guilt. I don't have to abandon it. That I can abandon something like Ansible and invent something that's better. I can make my own thing that does it better. The power of having your own home lab and lots of experience, including Go coding, is that, which is the only reason I code at all, by the way, is to make something better. Is that you can just make things better where they exist. You have the freedom to do that. You don't have to feel guilty for reinventing the wheel or making your own thing. That's the whole point. The whole point of a home lab is to experiment. It's to like get out of your comfort zone and do things that are not normal. It's also to practice the stuff that's going to get you a job. There's no doubt that that's a part of it. But the fun part of a home lab is being able to do things that no one's done. You know, experiment with things and try them out and break it. And I mean, that's the whole point of a lab. That's the definition of a laboratory. If you're not doing that, if you're just recreating an enterprise IT shop at home, then you're losing the best part of a lab. And I don't know why I'm yelling. I don't know why I'm yelling. I think the reason I'm yelling is because I'm yelling at myself because I was Mr. Oh, I'm going to recreate my exact work environment so I can be a better automaton working for this big-ass corporation that's giving me this cushy job. What would Neo do? What would Neo do? You know, no, you don't need to do it. And, you know... get put into a game. Can you really offer a better solution? Hell yeah. First of all, Ansible is written in Python. Burn. It'll take the red pill. Yeah. But mostly I realize that being a hacker is the case. So what does this have to do with my home lab? It means I'm about done with this rant. We'll actually do something fun. We'll talk about CephFS, which I can't wait to start. Yeah. It means that my home lab is what I want, not what my company or some other company wants. And I would waste time putting into some cloud server somewhere. So there's another thing too. People, you know, for their home lab, they end up using cloud boxes. I'm more convinced than ever, never to do that. Because if you're using a cloud, you're always going to be constrained by just today I was watching Alta 4 and somebody in the stream was like, oh, they actually kind of sarcastically said, oh, so you don't like it when GCP deprecates a primary critical service that you become dependent on just because they want to. Guess what? That shit doesn't happen in your own home lab. In your own home lab, you can keep it on the oldest version of anything you ever want. You don't have to be afraid of somebody deprecating something. Maybe it's changes to the kernel, but even then you can use the old kernel if you really want. You have full control, my friends. You have full control if you have a home lab, and you have permission to do whatever the hell you want. You don't have that in the cloud. Even a cloud like DigitalOcean or Linode or one of these like really flexible clouds. You don't have that. You'll never have that. You also don't have the freedom to like open up the thing and like, whatever. Yeah, no warning CV evals. Well, I mean, you can definitely look for those things and fix them yourself and run your own security. And frankly, most hackers, good ones, are like doing things in their home lab that they could never ever do anywhere else. Some of which are very innovative. And it depends on how dark you are, but there is innovation happening in the hacker community that would just make most, cloud native people cry like a little baby because it's so amazing. They're like over engineering things, but they don't care because it's their home lab. Right? Firewall in a home lab? Hell yeah. I don't know a firewall. Of course I do. You can't say how dark. Yeah. So by dark, I'm not talking about skin color, of course, which I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's not what I meant. So anyway, my home lab is where I can use my technologies that I absolutely love. Exactly. Run DOS and VM. You go. I want to improve and learn. And my home lab, after all, is for learning new things, practicing new things, what I need for the job, and for hacking the shit out of people for fun and profit. And if you really want to know hackery, I've never been more than, slightly more than 50% gray. I mean, I've never been dark. I'm not like, no, you know what I mean? I mean, there's dark people out there. There's dark web people that are, I mean, no, I'm like Elliot Dark, but it's fictional, obviously. He uses nano and he only types like 20 words a minute. So he's obviously fictional. Okay. Breaking into the mainframe dark nerd. Yes. This means that things like Terraform and Ansible and Vagrant are just completely unnecessary when SSH certs and a good bash script will do what I need. In fact, that is more of the hacker's way to do it anyway. Being a hacker means using the least amount of unnecessary technology. And this has been a core of the boost all along for me. I don't like building dependencies on things. I like being efficient. But so if something can gain me some, time and efficiency, hell yeah. But I don't like using unnecessary technology. Bottom line, Ansible is totally unnecessary technology to me. There's absolutely no need for it. I don't need it. If I'm going to be switching up what's in my cloud all the time and reconfiguring things constantly, then maybe I would use Ansible. Otherwise, I just write a good bash script. Yeah. And then, write a thing that captures the output or write some Go code or whatever. So, which I might actually do. Anyway, being a hacker means using making what you have, and when you have something, making your own single binary rootkit that can install with a black door and do everything you want. So this is another thing. So there are a bunch of things that I actually do want to do that are not done by Ansible or anything else. But if I put them in a single executable, my entire home lab. So this is the main point here. The main point here is that my home lab management is going to take the same architectural approach as when I add your home lab to my home lab. So I don't know how much I can say about that, but let's say when I add your home lab to my home lab without you knowing it, how am I going to manage your home lab? Am I going to use Terraform, Ansible, and Vagrant? No. I'm going to use a rootkit. I'm going to use a rootkit that I know that I wrote that has my code in it that's using Bonsai. Right? And then I'm going to fire up VNC or whatever I need to get back, and I'm going to SSH tunnel crop. Which, by the way, I can do in Go because Go has SSH built in. I go as dark as in Tor on your routing. Yeah. That's not that dark at all. Yeah. I defend against the rule. Yeah. So, yeah, it's all good. The point I'm trying to make here is all of the remote management systems that exist right now suck. And we were talking about this yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about this. We were talking about how horrible Terraform, we can't get it together with configuration management with Ansible and all that stuff. Why do you install Kali? I only installed Kali as just to see if VNC was going to work remote through Proxmox. That's the only reason. And I'm going to make, I mean, I already started it, right? I made my own container distribution in Arch to do the kind of things that I want to do. I mean, Kali, you do have, actually, you do have to use Kali to get Burp Suite and shit like that. Burp Suite's horrible. Burp Suite's one of the first things I want to rewrite. So, and by the way, these are all things that I consider very fun and I want to do over time. And we're headed into the winter time, into the fall and winter time. So I can already feel it taking over my being, you know. When it starts to get cold outside, I don't go outside as much. I don't skateboard and stuff. And I end up haxing, you know, and running stuff like that. I think Burp is a disaster. The fact that it's so expensive, it just needs to be rewritten, and there needs to be an open source equivalent of Burp that's actually the thing that they charge you $3,000 for enterprise or whatever. We need to like make that so it's a tool that anybody can use. And that is a goal of mine. That is one of the many goals that I have. I mean, I have lots, but that's there's a lot of other things I have to do first. And with a bunch of plugins, yeah. Well, and most people do, but the problem is that the entire thing is just fundamentally flawed at the core. I mean, it's just it could be so much more elegantly done in Go. It could be so much more elegantly done in Go, and not only could it be more elegantly done, but it could be encapsulated into a rootkit using Bonsai, so that you could ship it to an endpoint and run it from there. It also, the version I make isn't going to depend on any graphic interface other than for the injection and stuff, like for cookies and stuff, which you have to have. Yeah, it's really it's really lame to try to do that kind of thing if you have, you know, all the cookie injection and all that stuff like that. The Burp Suite depends on the browser for, is still easier to do in the browser from what I saw last time I checked. And I've fallen off the map when it comes to, you know, the latest hacking techniques. You got to be really up on that stuff. So that's stuff I will be working on eventually. And I plan on doing a lot of hacking from my home lab. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing, a lot of, you know, cloud management and development. And one of the things I'm really going to do with my home lab, probably more than anything else, is I'm going to work on this one endpoint to rule them all thing. And I'm going to make it modular so that it'll use Bonsai, and rather than just make like a Z command like I've been doing, you'll be able to modularly put into your endpoint the stuff you want, right? So if you want to put in Burp Suite, or if you want to put in, you know, a better VI, it'll all be compiled into the one binary, and then the binary endpoint just has to be shipped, and then the endpoints can automatically pull in updates. And so the only thing you ever have to install on a system is the one binary. That's it. And then the binary itself knows how to set up your vimrc, and all that other stuff is all compiled into it. And then you can modularly build your own Bonsai Z monoliths that have all this stuff in them, and then all of this other crap, all of these dependency management and everything that has to happen to run Ansible or whatever you want anywhere, but it just uses SSH goes away, because now you have an endpoint. And by the way, those endpoints can be on Windows systems too. They don't, or Macs. They don't have to just be, that doesn't just have to be installed. So basically my approach to home lab management is the same approach to creating my own personal rootkit that I can put on any system and control it the way I want to, securely. And basically, I'm making a botnet that's modular for my own home lab systems management. And that is going to be my approach going forward. So when you see me, like, for now, just like SSH and bash install something, apt install or something like that, just know that that's where I'm going long term. A polymorphic worm virus is running around in my DOS box, written in assembler with virtual hardware. Oh, that's so cool. See, I wish I was that good. I'm not that good. I want to be. I do. I want to be. One of the great things about running KVM on that server over there is I can actually do that shit. I can. Who knows? Maybe I'll even write some Rust because Gamozo does. Gamozo does this stuff all the time. He fuzzes operating systems all the time to find stuff like that. I would love to be able to get into that. And there's so much fun stuff to get into. And that is the reason I have a home lab. And that is really the conclusion of my little talky rant here, is that I'm a hacker and I'm going to do it as a hacker. And I'm going to make the best rootkit / remote configuration manager That needs to be a t-shirt. That needs to be a t-shirt. My configuration manager is no. Your configuration manager is my rootkit. Because that's what a rootkit is. All a rootkit does is give you full control of the box. And what the hell is configuration management if that's not it? You know what I'm saying? So seriously, if we spend our time making like the world's best rootkit, modular, rootkit that acts as a botnet with like, distributed, coordinated, whatever that we want for managing all these servers remotely or doing anything we want. What's the difference? It's the same thing. I have total, not only that, but if I make it as Go, then I can do it concurrently. So that means if I want to fork bomb the system, I can. You can't do that with Ansible. I mean, you probably can. I'm sure somebody probably has on accident. No. All right. So this is why people are. I have to kind of articulate this at least once because I'm not a very good hacker. I'm not. I know enough to be a good hacker, but I and it depends on what you would call a hacker anyway, right? Breaking into somebody's computer is not really hard, depending on who the person is and what they're running. But social engineering. I don't do social engineering, by the way. I don't. I've never done that. I feel I just can't. I probably could. Maybe that's something I should aspire to. I certainly couldn't stream it, or could I? Can I stream social engineering? I don't think I could. That's probably a bad thing. I don't think I could stream any kind of hacking, period. They would get me banned from Twitch and stuff. Yeah. Good at social engineering. Yeah, well. Yeah. I mean, I just said that I don't do social engineering, and then I remembered rants a lot. I do rant a lot. I do. But then I remembered some instance in my past that would probably qualify as social engineering, even though I didn't think that was what I was doing at the time. Drop flash drives to jail. Okay, going deep into a private bug bounty program live on Twitch. You can do bug bounty programs. You have to be careful though, and I plan on doing that actually. Yeah. I plan on doing the bug bounty stuff again. So that's another personal goal of mine. One of the reasons I have the homelab is I want to be able to start doing a couple things. I want to start preparing my own sort of Easter eggs so that I can make things for you to hack. Jay Bears does it. Yep. Yeah, he does it a lot. Hey, Isaac. Good to see you. It's allowed on stream as long as you can't do it illegally, right? So you can do legal pen testing. Yeah. You can do try hack me and hack the box and all that, and you can do the legal stuff. And frankly, I actually want to start picking up. I mean, I have a lot to learn with Kubernetes and Tecton and all this stuff to do my day job. And I will put in fact, let's go back to the schedule really quick since this is actually homelab init. Let's actually turn homelab init off for a second here. So I'm going to end the homelab init stream. So YouTube, I'm going to say goodbye to you. We're going to Twitch will still be here. We're going to be switching over for a bit, and we're going to be doing some CephFS planning. I guess you could watch that. Should we keep that on? Something on stream, though? Isn't that bad? If you find something on stream, it's really, really bad. Hey, Hazy. Just for your stream. Oh, how you doing, HC? It's good to see you. I saw you on Discord there. Thank you for joining. All right, so let's talk about CephFS now. And this is actually part of the homelab init thing. All right, so what does CephFS give you? So just let me remind you. This over here, down here in the corner, over here, not my chips or whatever, but these machines over here, they all have a terabyte. They have 8 gig of RAM. They're a terabyte. They're running i5, so they got really crappy CPUs. It doesn't matter. You don't need a high-end CPU for CephFS, and we're going to get into it. I've never actually deployed CephFS. I've just heard amazing things about it, and hopefully it won't turn out to be like Proxmox, right? But I do know that CephFS has like first-class support in Kubernetes as a storage class. And I'll answer the question again. Why do I need network attached storage? Over the lab, I'm definitely going to have that. I'm definitely going to have that. I have a whatever USB cam that's just sitting around. It'll become the new one, so I can like point at it and show it, and it'll just show the blinky lights and stuff like that. I'll position it properly and everything, eventually. But for right now, So the home lab, it's fine. My style is to be interrupted. So if you have something interesting to say, please say it. So the bottom line is that we need to have storage. So what is network attached storage? If you're doing a home lab, what is network attached storage as CephFS? That's a great question, Maluba. I have no idea. Why don't we? I'm adding that to my questions list. Yeah. And okay, so network attached storage is a file level computer data server connected to a computer network data storage of heterogeneous group of environments. The term NAS can be referred to both the technology and the systems involved. A NAS device is optimized for serving files from its hardware, software, and configuration is often a computer. So if you don't know what a NAS is, so like after Ceph, look at CephFS. I mean, I've looked at it a little bit, but I don't know. We'll look. We'll see. But so the goal here is for me to take these 6 machines that have a terabyte each, 8 gig of RAM, and one, i5, what is it? Yeah, Intel chip, and get them to put all of their combined storage into one virtual hard drive that is accessible over the internet, over the network, over the gigabit Ethernet. You can't really do this stuff unless you have gigabit Ethernet. I mean, you used to be able to try it. It's really slow though. We used to do it over 10 gigabit, and we used NFS over. Anybody ever had that? 10 megabit connect 10100. God, is anybody? I used to use NFS over 10100 internet, and it was so slow. You would go to save a file or something, and you like wait around forever, right? And God help you if you like ran find on it. You would like run find or something and had to search through the whole file system. You'd be there for days while I was like doing all this network traffic. But that's all changed, right? So we have gigabit Ethernet now, which is way faster. Yeah, and so there's things like iSCSI. SCSI is normally a standard for data communication it's an old time thing from hard drive inside your computer to your main motherboard. But the name is stuck around. iSCSI is one of the things. I don't know the details of these protocols. Just a lot for me to learn. But the idea of having, this one device that has lots of disks in it, or multiple devices that have individual disks in them, and having them combine and provide a single network drive, a NAS, that is available over one of the network attached storage protocols, which is what NFS is. NFS is the oldest one. And then you have NFS, you have GPFS, which is IBM's thing that came out in 2001, which sucks, by the way. Our whole enterprise went down several times, including last week for at least 2 days because of GPS problems that were from IBM. Don't use it. I've been screaming on Twitter about how bad it is. And then there's things like, CephFS, which is a new one I've heard about, and CephFS as well. But any of these protocols have to be able to talk really quickly and efficiently over the network, and they have different requirements for how you set it up on the machine. Most of the people doing this who have the money will buy a $3,000-$4,000 NAS, and they'll from Synology or something, or for whatever, and they'll plug it in to your rack, and then they'll just connect it to the network, and boom, they don't have to do anything else. I don't have that kind of money. Plus, I already have these other things, so I want to play around with some of the options that are designed to reuse commodity hardware and reliably. So that's kind of what I want to do with it. An old notebook for that. For CephFS, the hardest part about keeping old. We should probably talk about that. I got about 20 old notebooks that we need to get. I need to decide what to do with them. You definitely can put old notebooks on the networking thing. The problem is, I think, it's probably going to be the battery, because if you leave it plugged in, the battery will blow up like my Dell. I had a Dell XPS 15 for a year, and the thing blew up, literally blew up. It didn't like burn, but the battery went and swole up, and because it was plugged in all the time. So I don't know if I would do that personally. Um, I mean, there's other things you can do with them, but the best thing to do with an old laptop is to put Linux on it, get it really pretty, and then give it to some kid who doesn't have a computer. In my opinion, because they're gonna get it and they're gonna say, "Can I play games on it?" Like, no, but you can code and you can do all these other things, right? And use the internet and stuff like that, and they'll have a computer and they didn't have one before, right? And maybe you'll introduce them to Linux at the same time. It's one of the few times putting desktop Linux on a computer makes a lot of sense. Uh, I mean, because they're gonna use it. My kids use desktop Linux for their during the strong bad days. So when was that? Probably for 20 in their when was that? I don't even remember when that was. It was a long time ago. So network attached storage, that's what it is, and CephFS is one of them. CephFS. I've already done a little bit of preliminary research on CephFS because I wanted to know how to configure my systems. And so I'll kind of spoiler alert this. You need to leave some amount of partition on your system unassigned so that you can mount it as a raw partition and then give it to CephFS. And if you don't do that, you have to like repartition your hard drive, which means reinstalling your whole OS, and do it that way. And I thought about doing it on the Mac Minis because I took LVM off there, so it's just nice and simple. And I didn't do that. But for these, so these things are running LVM, which is Logical Volume Manager. All that is it's a technology that IBM invented actually a long time ago, for making blocks of storage, a whole bunch of them. Not to be confused with block storage, which is a different thing. A lot of little blocks, you can imagine a bunch of little blocks, and then saying, okay, I want 5 blocks to make a partition and assign that, and now I want to grow it by 1 block, and over here I want to make another one. So it gives you the ability to resize partitions and to add to them and to reorganize your disk. It's basically taking the idea of, well, not really sectors, but it just allows you to resize your partitions. And before that, you didn't have it. Before that, you had to delete an entire partition and then remake another one. You still have to do that, though. You still have to make an LVM partition and then give it over to the Logical Volume Manager and then allow it to manage that partition, that sub-partition, which gets complicated. So sometimes you just drop LVM if you don't need it. If you're on like a Raspberry Pi or you're on a Mac Mini that's going to always be using that storage just for the root FS, we don't care about anything else. That you could get rid of it. You don't need it. You can also encrypt your disks and stuff if you have like stuff you want to do that you don't want people to know about. I'm not going to do anything that's so secret on my system that I would want to encrypt my disks. Yeah. Well, the root and the boot partition, you can fill out the root partition pretty fine. That's pretty fine. Most of these systems, if I were going to do that, I would have, yeah. I mean, you could make your root partition 100, and then you could make another partition more, and then concentrate on filling that one up, putting your home stuff over there. My systems, I don't care if I fill the partition up, actually. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be doing Kubernetes. So, in the odd chance that like my system logs filled up all, half a terabyte, thank you for the follow, I would, not matter. It wouldn't matter to me because it would stop working, and that deployment node would stop being available, and the pods would just keep working because I would always have at least a 2-pod or 3-pod deployment on anything. And so the pods would like renegotiate to someplace else. And as long as I'm using network attached storage, I don't care about that. But yeah, I mean, if you deleting Logical Volume Manager and using a root file system for a node is a super bad idea in the enterprise. But for a Mac Mini in my home lab, that's fine. So yeah, it's good to bring that out though, because I don't want anybody to think that they can go do that at work. That would get you fired. Yeah. But I mean, unless you're dedicating that thing to as a Kubernetes node. If it's a dedicated Kubernetes node, you really don't care. You honestly don't care, because if anything goes wrong on that node, Kubernetes will recover, and your applications, if you've done your application right, it will be fine. That's the whole point of Kubernetes, by the way, is this ability for systems to just die and for the entire thing to be ephemeral. And if you want a new one, you want to change modifications, you kill the old one and start a new one up. I mean, it basically capitalizes on the idea of, like, I mean, anybody who's ever installed a Linux system, have you ever tried to uninstall stuff? No. What you do is you start out with a Linux system and you keep installing stuff, and you install more stuff, and you install more stuff, and when you want to go back to something else, you blow the whole thing away and you make a new one and you install stuff on that. That's Kubernetes in a nutshell. It's this ephemeral idea. Yeah, you purge it because it's impossible for you to get all the stuff that's off of there usually. Usually, even when you install something that you don't think has any, hooks into anything else. It works for Windows too, by the way. If you have young kids that have admin on the machine or are constantly getting viruses, every 3 months I save tons of money on virus software, but not buying any, and I just reimage the systems every 3 months, and then we just reinstall the games, and they're like, wow, my computer's so much faster now. So, and carry it over to new disks. I'm sentimental. Yeah, some people do that. Some people like to do that. Yeah, I mean, especially if you've got like a multi-user home system. I mean, in the old days, we used to partition out home separately from other stuff for that purpose, and then we'd have it. And a lot of people, in the old NFS days, they would mount /home on NFS, so everybody's home directory was, and now in my place of work, they don't use /home, they use /something that I won't say, but they use another mount point, but everybody has that mount point, and they can actually choose to make that their home directory if they want to. They don't have to, but they can. If they choose to, they can make that their home directory so that they have the same home directory everywhere, including on their Mac. I mean, or something. They can actually mount that thing, and they use SSH with Kerberos over PAM to keep it all. And I'm going to be setting all that up as well. So yeah. And in that way, no matter what system you log into, you always have the same home directory. You don't even have to do synchronization. And so I'm actually thinking about this pretty seriously right now. PAM, yeah. PAM authentication, PAM modules, yeah. PAM over SSH is how you get Kerberos authentication, so you can get enterprise, password. And I am going to set that up. I'm going to set up a multi-user identity management system, even though I only have me to deal with, mostly for that reason. I don't know if I like it, but I'm still going to use it. If for no other reason, I don't know if it's called PAM stack. We're going to go see. Familiar PAM setup, yeah, just the regular PAM. But I want the PAM to actually go to remote Kerberos LDAP server of some kind. Not LDAP, but Kerberos of some kind. And so I this is where I want to see about, so Hayden was talking about open IPA. And so we might do that instead. I don't know. I haven't looked at the identity management stuff. Right now I don't need it because I'm just me, and I just want to count. But, and these days you really don't need to deal with that stuff that much. But the only reason I need to deal with it is I do need to set up pretend users in order to do testing on Kubernetes and thing. But I don't need it for my own home lab, but I need it to be able to test. Because I need to audit people and create random accounts and things like that. So, and I do want to get good at setting up identity management in a small to mid-sized company, which would mean looking at the different methods of doing that right now. Besides just straight up open LDAP, all the other ones, it's the whether it's Active Directory or whatever. I'm not doing Active Directory though. Okay, so CephFS, Enterprise 2FA PAM on Red Hat, yeah, yep, yeah, not fun to configure. No, I bet it isn't. Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the areas that I think Red Hat would probably be better than Ubuntu, but I don't know that yet. I haven't done it. So, I don't know. It's not like I can deploy Active Directory and internally because I don't want to. I mean, I could do that in a KVM virtual machine. I could employ Active Directory in there just to get a sense of it, but I don't want to do that. Bottom line, I don't want to work with that shit. If I had a choice to work for a company that used Active Directory for everything versus some of the other options, I know there's nobody using NIS anymore. 2FA, like you can't believe. I know. 2FA is a thing. The people, it's still bad, but better than nothing. Sometimes it's not better than nothing, though. It depends on the form of 2FA, of course. So yeah, we're gonna have to set that up. I'm not gonna set it up for myself, but I don't know. Maybe I will. I have put a root account on all these systems of mine that if anybody had access to my account, they could just walk into all my systems. So I do not have a zero trust situation going on right now because that's like really, really complicated. Allowed Oracle. Interesting. I mean, and this is the other thing too. I talked about earlier. I talked about being a hacker, right? If I put out all that stuff in my system, if I create a zero trust environment for my system, I mean, I legitimately have a situation where I have like a firewall up, and if they get past the firewall, sky's the limit. But there's really nothing for them to find. And another approach to security is to not have anything that anybody would care about to find. Everything's encrypted. All the TLS, it's all TLS encrypted. All the transport technology is encrypted. Anything that's written at rest that's important is encrypted. So, I mean, they'd be able to walk around and go through all my different systems that they got in here, but there's nothing to see, right? There's segmentation. Yeah, breaking up does help, but the important thing with security, in my opinion, I mean, they could deny things, but even if they snip network traffic, they're not going to be able to get any information. The Google Authenticator takes 30 seconds to open. Oh my God. Yeah. I hate that that's the thing. Yeah. Yeah, I wish we could get past it. So anyway, CephFS is a POSIX compliant file system built on top of Ceph's distributed object store. Rado as CephFS endeavors to provide state-of-the-art multi-use high availability and performant file storage for a variety of applications, including traditional use cases like home directories, HPC Scratch, and distributed workflow. So, yeah, great docs. I already read all this, but I'm going to read it again. The Ceph file system is all that. I think I actually will use CephFS to mount for my home directory, even though I'm an admin. I want to get that to work because then I don't have to distribute things. Everybody has it automatically. I don't have to, synchronize shit. The CephFS file system, the only downside of that is I am a little concerned about high availability on the CephFS thing. That's why I have 6 machines that I'm using. If I can't achieve high availability with CephFS, I might just use NFS on one of the machines for this because I don't need a lot of space. But if I can achieve the CephFS things, I'll have 6 terabytes of storage. So I'm going to take a few minutes because Google. Yeah. CephFS endeavors to provide a state-of-the-art multi-use high availability. Yeah. Achieves the goal through the use of some novel architecture choices, notably file metadata is stored in a separate RADOS pool from the file data and served via a resizable cluster of metadata servers, or MDS, the MDSs, which may scale to support higher throughput metadata workloads. I plan on doing a lot of internet scanning, and I hope that I don't get in trouble with my ISP. This is the thing I'm most afraid of is what my ISP is going to think of me doing internet scans. Technically it shouldn't be there outbound. I should be able to do whatever I want. But we're going to find out. So, you can do internet scans and you just have to stagger them, right? If someone complains. Yeah. And one of the reasons I have all the machines is I want to be able to concurrently scan. I could scan the whole internet in a night easily. Like everything, like every single IP on the internet, I could scan it in one night. Especially with some of the new tools that are out there that have really high concurrency. So dual VPN, you're fine. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I mean, the stuff I'm going to be scanning for is not going to be, malicious or anything. So, show up on the internet bad list for port scanning bots. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would be careful about that. And there are lots of port scanning bots. Most of the port scanning stuff I wouldn't need anyway because I have a, what's the name of it? God, I haven't even logged into it in a long time. I have a lifetime membership to the one true port scanner out there. What's it called? It's like the Google of port scanners. Why am I spacing on the name? Shodan.io. Yeah. Yeah. And DNS black hole server. And it downloads the list daily. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I could probably. I don't know about scanning. I've thought about indexing the web though, quite a few times actually. Yeah. Anyway, CephFS switch base scale. What time is it? Okay, we have like 40 minutes before we're gonna go to Q&A time. CephFS achieves the goals through the use of some novel architecture choices. I already read about that. Workloads may linearly scale with the size of underlying RightOS objects. Your ISP didn't care and you index the web? Yeah. I mean, why would they care, honestly? You know? How much was your total storage? Because that's one of the things I want enough storage. I think if I have 6 terabytes, I should have plenty of space for the entire internet. For all of the indexed internet, pretty much. The lights are on today, yes. Just so I could show it off a little bit, but depends on what you're storing. Yeah, how much of it? Yeah. Anyway, so linear scale workloads. Access data is coordinated through a cluster of MDS, which serve as authorities for the state of distributed metadata. CephFS is subject to numerous academic papers and novel designs and contributions to file system research. It is the oldest storage interface to Ceph and was once the primary use case for RightOS. Now it is joined by 2 other storage interfaces to form a modern unified storage system, RBD and RGW, Ceph Object Storage Gateway. Interesting. Getting started with Ceph. Most deployments, CephFS volume create FS name. Ceph Orchestrator will automatically create and configure MDS for your file system if the backend deployment technology supports it. What? So it looks like it has to have a file system already. It sounds like I'm going to have to partition in files and create a file system for my storage. Otherwise, please deploy MDS manually as needed. Finally, to mount CFS, to mount CephFS on your client nodes, you need mount FS prerequisites. Additionally, command line shell utility is available for interactive access via scripting for CephFS shell. Instead of your right stick a few terabytes. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Creating a pool. Creating a Ceph file system. A Ceph file system requires at least 2 RightOS pools, one for data and one for metadata. Higher replication event. Low latency storage such as SSD for the metadata pool. This will directly affect the observed latency on the file system for operations outside. What I'm thinking of doing is setting up the All right, so I'm thinking of putting the primary data pool on my server that has SSD on it. I don't know if it's wise to put it in a VM though. I don't think I'm going to put it in a VM. A Ceph file system requires at least 2 routable pools, one for data and one for metadata. When configuring these pools, you might consider using a high replication level for the metadata pool. Loss in this pool can render the whole file system inaccessible. A latency storage such as SSD for the metadata pool directly affect the observed latency of the file system operations on clients. I don't have SSD to do for that. I wish I did. The data pool used to create the file system is the default data pool, and the location of storage is INO backdrops. I should use hardlink management, disaster recovery. All inodes created in CephFS have at least one object in the default data pool. I wonder if it does ext3. I think metadata pool, yeah. The metadata pool is the one that has, that's the one that controls the initial access. It's like the metadata pool is kind of like the inode table for the whole thing, right? And we found out actually earlier in the year that under, I think, 256K, no. What was the size? There's some minimum size, maximum size. If your file is under a certain amount of size, it actually gets stored in the inode table. It doesn't even ever get written to disk at all, other than the inode table. So the metadata pool to me sounds like the inode table for a given directory. And if erasure code pools are planned for the file system, it's usually better to use replicated pool. Oh, I know it's created in CephFS. It does say that it does say that CephFS can use one of these standard, file systems to install on top of, which makes me wonder if I can actually create a partition using whatever and then put ext3 in it, or if there's actually CephFS file system format I can actually put it in and bypass the indirection. I don't know. If erasure code pools are planned for the file system, it's usually better to use a replicated pool for the default data pool to improve small object write and read performance for updating batch traces. Separately, other erasure coded data pool can be added. Entire hierarchy of data. All right, so the metadata pool has to be fast, have SSD, and redundant, because if it dies, your whole thing dies. And I'm now thinking about this for my terms. How many can you put in the metadata pool? Like 5? I wonder if I could put pies in there. How big is the metadata pool? It doesn't have to be that big, because the data pool is the big one. The metadata pool is smaller than that. I'm wondering if I could make 3 KVMs. If I could make 3 metadata CephFS nodes and install Ubuntu server on or something like that on my main server that has SSD, and then I could do that. I don't even know if you can do CephFS over a VM, if that's the latency is going to just really kill it or not. For example, to create two pools with default settings for use with the file system, you might run the following commands. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, crawling the web is fun. CephOSD pool create CephFS metadata. I love how all these commands are starting to look bonsai-like. Have you seen this? It's like the entire the whole new Linux community. If you look at like Network Manager, it's the same thing. NetPlan, Network Manager, there's no dashes. Dashes are there on occasion, but they're minimized. So people are like really into these like understandable command lines now. That file complete. The Network Manager NMCLI has a fantastic completion algorithm. It's so good. Refer to pools to learn more about management. So for example, you create two pools with default settings for use with the file system. You may run the following. Generally, the metadata pool will have at most a few gigabytes of data. Really? Wait, what? For this reason, a smaller PG count is usually recommended. What the hell? The metadata pool will have the most a few gigabytes of data. For this reason, a small PG count is usually recommended. 64, 128 is commonly used in practice for large clusters. Huh. Note, the names of the file systems metadata pools and data pools can only have character set and whatever. Once the pools are created, you may enable the file system using the fsnew command. For example, CephFS new, CephFS metadata, blah, blah, blah. Once a file system has been created, your MDS will be able to enter an active state. The MDS is the thing holding the actual data. For example, in a single MDS system, CephMDS stat, these are all on this is on the same machine. Once the file system is created and the MDS is active, you are ready to mount the file system. If you created more than one file system, you will choose which one to mount. Wow. If you have created more than one file system and the client does not specify a file system, you can control the file system. Adding a data pool in the file system. Using erasure-coded pools with CephFS. You may use erasure-coded pools with CephFS data pools as long as they have overwrites enabled, which is done as follows. And select configuring Ceph LBG. I have a couple questions right away for you with regard to architecture since you're here. So, can I put the metadata pool on my server with SSD and then do the data pools on the other thing? Do you have to have a metadata and a data pool on every single node? I think you do. Right? And yeah. The most of you. I mean, this thing here has got me concerned. Can we chat in Discord? Hell yeah. Come on in and chat. I'll go back on stage. It's easier to describe it. What time is it? I'm going to be doing IRL stuff anyway pretty soon. I got a half an hour before that, though, if you want to talk about it. Let's go on stage. Start the stage. So, I mean, a lot of you have done it already, so I'm all ears. I haven't done it before. The reason I'm really all ears on this, so the stage is up. Anybody who has knowledge about this wants to tell me what's up. Wow, there's a lot of people here. Who am I inviting? BG, is this you? Bogdan? Hey, how's it going? Thank you for the follow. Is that you, yeah? Invite to speak. All right, you're speaking here now. Can I hear you? I don't know. Testing. Are you there? You're muted, I think. Thank you for the follow, Bush. You're definitely muted. How about
Oh,
now?
of course I was muted.
All right, there you are, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, hey.
Okay, so a couple of quick questions. So I don't think I need an overview on CephFS because I've read a lot about it, but I do have some questions about the metadata pool and the data pool and how they are arranged. So I have these 8 gigabyte of RAM, terabyte hard drive machines over here that I want to make into data pool members. What is it? MS? What do they call them? M something, MSDs or something.
So,
And
first of all, Ceph actually offers multiple types of storage. So you have block storage, which is called RBD.
yeah,
And basically you can create, well, they call images,
yeah,
and then you can map those. It's basically a block device.
yeah.
You can mount those on clients, and then you can use them just like you would a block device.
That's great.
So you can format them, you can even partition them. So that's one type. The other is CephFS, which is basically a distributed file system that you can mount from multiple clients, and they
That's
can all see like the same thing.
okay. I see. So
And this is basically a file system. So on the clients you mount it and you see files.
yeah,
It's completely different than a block device, which is just like a
yeah. I think I
block of
probably want
bytes.
both eventually, but for right now, uh, I'm pretty sure CephFS with the file system is the one that Kubernetes has a provider for. I'm pretty sure. I mean, block devices are cool as well, but I think for block devices, I mean, we can go one at a time.
Yeah,
But the metadata,
basically Kubernetes has drivers for both,
yeah,
and you can also use Rook. And with Rook, you can either create a Ceph cluster inside a Kubernetes cluster,
yeah,
or you can configure it to use an external Ceph cluster,
uh huh, okay,
which I guess would be your case.
yeah, yeah,
And then it also offers like S3 compatible storage.
right, yeah,
So
and
that's like the third type of
that's fantastic.
API that it supports.
It's so cool.
So for now, you have nodes, right?
Yeah,
Like what a Ceph cluster is composed of. You have nodes, you have monitors, which is basically uh, the management component
yeah,
of Ceph.
I remember that
You need to have like a an odd number of monitors, like 3 or 5.
for quorum thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want HA, you can also have one, but if that goes down, then your whole cluster is
yeah,
down.
that's horrible.
Then you have a manager, which is kind of like an upper layer manager. Like it has a dashboard, it has all kinds of like uh, high level management.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm trying to find. I
so
remember seeing a thing about that. There's like a breakdown of all the main components.
yeah, then
Um,
there's OSDs, which uh, is basically the component that manages one drive or one partition.
yeah,
So, for example, like if you have a server with 5 drives, then that server will run 5 OSD processes or components.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then,
Here,
like
here.
the
So you're
management
talking.
part, you create pools, which is basically a logical unit
Mm-hmm.
uh, in all that space of offered by the OSDs.
Yeah. I think you're
Uh,
talking about the 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 actual
yeah,
drive.
and then you can create RBD images in a pool, or you can use a metadata and a data one or multiple data pools to create a CephFS file system.
Hmm. All right. So here's the breakdown again for the hardware recommendations. Then you have the CephMon and the Ceph Manager, and they can really run anywhere, right? I mean, they don't. I'm trying to decide where to put them. Um,
Well, you
the Ceph
would
Manager
want
needs the H.
to run them on the same nodes you also have storage on.
They have to be on this, or they not on that
No, they don't have to be, but it doesn't really make sense to run them on
separate.
some other servers.
Oh, so they can. Okay, that's good. So saying I have 6 of these things, on 3 of them I could run the monitor and the manager, and all
Yeah,
of them.
manager is usually one or an active and a standby. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
either one or two. Monitors are three or five. Like if you have six, you can run five.
Yeah.
They don't like the components that use the most memory are the OSDs, so the
Oh,
processes that manage the drives.
okay.
And also the amount of memory they use is based on the size of the drive and also like the number of clients connected.
Yeah. Well, and I. Yeah.
So
And
if you have small drives like I don't know,
well, these are
one
terabyte
less
drives.
than 1 terabyte and 10 clients, they will probably use like one
Yeah.
2 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I could see that. Um. Hmm. Well, so I think. All right. Well, I'm gonna need to read some more on this. But it sounds like I have
So I recommend Ceph ADM to set up the cluster.
Ceph what?
Ceph ADM,
Ceph
Ceph
AD.
admin basically, but it's
I've never heard of that. Is that an extra tool?
well, it's maintained by the Ceph team. So, but
Oh,
yeah,
is it?
it's a
Let me see if I can go look that up. So spell it for me, Ceph.
Ceph ADM
A,
ADM from
A.
admin.
Oh. Oh, ADM as an admin. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a thing. It's like an actual thing. Oh, wow. It deploys the whole cluster. What? CephADM deploys and manages the Ceph cluster. It does this by connecting the management daemon via host via SSH. What? The management daemon is able to add, remove, and update Ceph containers. Holy cow. This is exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, and it uses Podman.
Does it?
Well, also Docker, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
care. So does it? That's cool. Uh, and that can be this Ceph ADM have to be run from. I mean, does it have a? Is it a terminal or a web thing? Does it? I'm trying to decide where I would run this from. I run it from my main server. I'm
you
thinking
would run it on the first node, let's say, or on one
on
node.
one of the nodes itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. That
And then
okay.
it configures that node with like a mon, and then you can add
Other nodes.
new nodes,
Wow.
but you
This
only need it on one server.
you only need CephFS. So okay, this is good because I have .200 1 2 3 4 5 6, and so on my .200 I'll make that my CephADM node
Yeah,
manager, and then I'll install that, and then I'll run it, and then I'll just add the other nodes to it. And
yeah. And then you can, uh, for example, like if the first node dies
Yeah.
for some reason, you can also copy some files on more nodes, so you can use CephADM on the other nodes.
Oh, so if you needed to put CephADM on the other one, because I really want to make it really HA here. I just just to see.
Yeah. Because basically the whole management, like you saw those commands to, I don't know, add pools and create file systems and all
Yeah.
that, you run those inside the container on the CephADM node.
Oh, okay. So CephADM is going to have a. You're going to be installing PubMap. We're going to run it as a container, so that has all of its dependencies, and
You need to install the dependencies
the dependencies.
upfront.
Does it call out to the
You have them
dependencies?
in requirements in deploying a new
Yeah,
Ceph
yeah,
cluster.
yeah. I'm seeing this here. This looks like the next step for me. Then I'll definitely be doing this tonight. So that's fantastic. I mean, that makes it a lot easier in terms of like the approach, because I was kind of feeling like I was going to have to set up all the individual nodes and all the the
Yeah,
manager and the
no, that
monitor.
would take you a
Yeah,
week at least.
I know. And I was like looking at it. I'm like, oh. So
Even before there was a tool to install everything, because
it was
like
there, but this is the best
configuring
one now for this kind of thing. Yeah,
configuring the components separately is, yeah.
yeah. And then does this have? I mean, if I wanted to test this from like another node as a client, um, I mean, does it have an NFS layer on top of it that I could mount, or does it, or is I'd have to have this CephFS client installed on
Yeah,
all the inputs?
you have to install Ceph Common, I think.
Okay. And
That's
then
the
and
package that includes the client
yeah.
tools. And then you also need to create some authentication. Like you need to create some users and
Oh
then
right.
copy some credentials on the client nodes. And
Oh right. So they can communicate.
yeah,
And because it's, I mean, as you said, I mean, it's either a file system or block storage. Either way, I assume
yeah, you need a
once
user for one type and another for the other.
yeah.
So
But when you say user, you're talking about just a client of CephFS. It's not like if I were to have a multi-user system, I would just have to get the CephFS client working on the client node, and then I could mount it on home or whatever, and then the user IDs would all be whatever, right? Because
it's Ceph users, so they
yeah, right,
it's just like a Ceph the Ceph authentication and authorization mechanism.
huh? Yeah, it's just this stuff you're talking about is just allowing the client to talk to the, and it does
Yeah,
use
exactly. And
public key
I
cryptography.
think all the traffic is also encrypted,
Oh,
if
is it
I'm not
fantastic?
mistaken.
So it's like NFS v3. When
Well,
NFS finally
V5, I think.
five, yeah.
Yeah.
Four. I mean, three was the one that had the problems, and I think four and five were the better one. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, 4 nowadays is quite
pretty good.
fine, especially if you have a stable network.
Yeah. Well, plus it's already there, right? If you've got Linux installed, you've already got NFS. I thought about just
Yeah, I
having
mean,
like,
you still need to do some configuration, but
yeah.
yeah,
I wonder,
surely less than Ceph.
just for the sake of learning, I wonder if I'm thinking seriously of like leaving one of these systems off and just having it be an NFS server. Um, I know that's lame, and it's just, it's only 1 TB, so like that. But then I can
There's
practice.
also an NFS server, Ganesha NFS, I think it's called,
Uh huh.
that can use like Ceph
Yeah.
storage underneath.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking, because I mean, I know, like, for example, I know that, GPFS, for example, shows up as NFS in Kubernetes in our system.
You can run that on a server along with Ceph components. So
Yeah. Right. Well, God, that's very, very helpful. I think I'm going to use 5 servers for CephFS. I'm going to save one of these to be just an NFS server, so that I'll have an NFS and a CephFS, and then I can use both as storage classes independently from one another in Kubernetes, so I can practice setting up different storage classes. And I mean, I could do the layer with the CephFS thing, but just for the sake of learning, I mean, I really don't need a lot of file systems other than to understand them. Is he from India? I don't know. I haven't asked. Why are you
Do I
asking?
really have an Indian accent?
I wouldn't say Indian, but I'm not gonna ask.
Yeah, I'm from Romania, so
I was gonna figure. Yeah, definitely one of those Slavic states. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Eastern EU.
Yes. So yeah, so I think that's what we'll do. We'll do 1 terabyte system of NFS, and then we'll have 4 terabytes, 4 or 5 terabytes of CephFS storage. I don't really see a need to have more than one NFS mount, but I mean, I guess I could do that. So yeah, that's actually really useful. I got to get ready for this thing coming up. But you're welcome to hang with us. You're going to be here for questions and answers. You want to try that? Who knows what the questions are going to be? I do a little bit, but somebody
Yeah,
else
I mean,
mentioned.
if I don't fall asleep until then,
Yeah, I'm gonna.
uh,
I'm seeing there's another question here. Oh God.
yeah, not sure what the questions are. Like,
The
I
questions
don't.
are going to be really.
I only have opinions on things that
I love that you have opinions, and
well, on things that I think I know
yeah, me
well.
too. Me too. Yeah.
Like, I don't have opinions on climate change or things like that.
Yeah. Well, you know. All right. So I'm
I
gonna
mean,
go.
I have some like personal, but I won't share them with
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
because they are not very well informed. So
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
It's like whether you have. Yeah. Strong opinions weakly held. You know, if you have an opinion on something, you're like, I really don't. I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, people in Proxmox. I've been kind of frustrated with Proxmox. I'm kind of cooled off now, and I'm like, no, it makes sense, and I'm probably going to put it on, something else eventually. Uh, but my opinion is more informed now than it was before.
you
It's
know,
still
I've
very
noticed that,
uninformed, but
and
it's more informed
probably
than it was.
people in chat is that you're swinging from an extreme to the other extreme,
Yeah, I do that all the time.
kind of,
Yeah,
which is yeah not necessarily
it's not good.
a good or a bad thing. Like
Oh,
it
it's
is
not
what
good.
it
It's not
is.
good. I'm very passionate. I go one way or the other. It's like all or nothing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm more like centered and
yeah. Well, good for you. I mean, I've tried to be that way, but it's like in my ongoing thing. I also, yeah. I mean,
so you either like love something with
or I hate it.
passion
I
or
love it or
you
I hate
hate
it.
something with passion.
Yes, I do. Until it, you know what it is. I like to like things until they do me wrong, and then it's like a love relationship. I get really passionate. I'm really into it. It's like and then it's like it's like my girlfriend throws all my stuff in the street, and I'm like, okay, I hate you now. And I
Yeah, I
don't.
think you're taking things a bit too personal
Yeah, no, I know I do. I
sometimes.
always take things personal. That's been a major problem of mine. Yeah. It is. It's just part of my personality and and my culture and stuff. And plus, I was raised Mormon. God damn it. So I a lot of the times the stuff is not even directed at people. It's internal stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I was like that maybe 10, 15 years ago, so I completely understand that way
yeah,
of thinking.
yeah,
But yeah, I got more tempered with time.
yeah. Well, you have to. I mean, you have to. And again, I do part. Well, whatever. Computers don't make sense. We do. Yes, that's true too. That's true too. Um, all right, I'm gonna grab a beverage and I'm gonna get ready. We're gonna have a thing here. I'll put a little bit of music on if anybody wants to listen. We only have about 20 minutes before our question and answer period. So thank you for your insight on that.